poetry in the university, and I wanted to be a poet and have a very romantic life, writing poetry and traveling the world and drinking wine. And then I learned that that life was not tangible for my future, so I decided to be a teacher. Wah wah. But so creative writing is really near and dear to my heart. It's something I really love, and so I'm excited to share it with you guys today. So we're going to start with a writing activity. So like I said, make sure that you have a notebook. If you don't, raise your hand and I'll pass you one, or someone from another table will pass you one. And I have a writing activity for you on the board to start. It says, respond to this question in your new notebook that I just gave you. So if you were here for last week's workshop, respond to question 1. What do you know about classroom culture? And what do you still want to learn? And if you weren't here last week, you're breaking my heart. Respond to question 2. What do you think classroom culture means? What kind of connotations do you have for that phrase? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to respond to this. And when this circle turns blue, your 5 minutes are up. So focus, relax yourself, respond, and start writing. Maybe you came up with some ideas of what my purpose was, but I'll be transparent with you and tell you what the purpose of that activity was. If you noticed, when we first came in, before I started, there was a big line of people waiting to sign in. And by the end of that activity, everyone was seated and calm. The same kind of applies perhaps in your classroom. If you have students who are coming in maybe a little bit late, then you can use an activity like this to calm them down. As they come in, they join the activity, right? Everyone kind of had enough time to settle in. And I also used this activity to start this workshop because it was calming. Well, many people were working without talking, which is what I was hoping for. And in this workshop about creative writing, we're going to do a lot of writing and a lot less talking than we usually do. So you should have an agenda. It looks like this. This agenda is super vague. I did that on purpose because I wanted to leave the activities open to however long they take us. Creative writing sometimes goes faster than you think and sometimes slower. So if you need an agenda, it's at the back sign-in table. So I'm going to give you some information, some theory about creative writing like I usually do to start. Then we're going to break down a ton of different activities, and I'm going to give you materials to practice those activities. The reality with creative writing is if you yourself as a teacher have never done some of these activities, you won't do them with your students. There's no way for you to teach it if you yourself have never done it. So we're going to do stuff together today. And then at the end, I'll give you some information about the impact of using creative writing in your classrooms. Anybody have a question about this agenda before we get going? Cool. So, here are my objectives. Does somebody else want to read them? Lenny?
Teacher will be able to use, modify, teach, and create activities focused on creative writing for their English learning students. Teacher will learn effective methods for teaching creative writing in various forms and for various levels of English learners.
Thank you so much. So this workshop is not going to teach you how to teach creative writing necessarily, but rather how to use creative writing to teach your English objectives that you're already teaching in your English class. So of course, teaching creative writing is beneficial, but we are English language teachers, not necessarily creative writing literature teachers. So I'm hoping that we can use, modify, teach, and create activities that are focused with the lens of creative writing. So before we get started, last week we talked about student management, and we talked a little bit about codes of conduct. So I'm going to give you a new writing activity. In your notebook, list 3 expectations of behavior you have for participants in this workshop today, keeping in mind that we're going to be doing a lot of writing individually. So I'll give you 3 minutes. Okay, is anyone willing to share one of your expectations of behavior? What is your behavior expectation for the participants in this workshop? Anybody want to share out your idea? please.
Okay, I wrote 3 ideas. The one is active listeners. Everybody is active. Number 2 is participation. Comments about the topic or different, I don't know, ideas that we can have. And number 3, that we are willing to learn something new today.
Those are 3 good behavior expectations. Does anyone have something different you want to contribute? You said active listening, participation.
Well, simple ideas. Share, participate, and concentrate.
I like it. Share, participate, concentrate. Anybody else have something different? I'll give you my code of conduct that I wrote for you. It's similar. The first one being be respectful of other people's learning, which means if someone is focused or listening, leave them to focus and listen. Listen and participate, right? If you participate, you'll get more out of this workshop. If you listen, it helps me know that you're paying attention. Then focus on the task at hand and be present in this moment. If you're worried about stuff later, or if you're on your phone thinking about other things, you're not being present in this moment. So focus on what we're doing today together, and hopefully it'll be beneficial for you. Can anybody, or rather, do you agree with these codes of conduct? Yes? No? Thank you. Okay, cool. So let's keep that in mind as we go about this workshop. Sometimes creative writing can be a little intimidating for people who feel vulnerable. So keep that in mind, that we're being respectful of each other's learning today. So we're going to start with the idea of what constitutes creative writing. I like this quote from Voltaire that says, "Writing is the painting of the voice." Writing is the painting of the voice, which is a really creative way to describe the art of writing. But I would define creative writing as original and self-expressive. Something original that you create that's also an expression of yourself. Creative writing has the purpose to entertain and to share human experience. So consider that when we're using creative writing, our purpose is not only to have an audience, but also to find some common ground with that audience and share our human experience with them. So this differentiates creative writing from formal writing. Formal writing doesn't necessarily exist to share human experience. It more exists to give facts, like a news article, for example, or an essay or a research project. It will give facts, but not share human experience, and that's what differentiates creative writing from formal writing. Many people say to me, "But Katie, I'm not a writer. I don't like to write." And this is me telling you, yes, you are. Don't limit yourself. We as teachers are naturally leaders. We are naturally readers and writers. We have to be. So don't limit yourself. You might think you're not a creative writer, but it's inside you. You just have to let it out. That's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to give you a little video about creative writing. Listen for this quote, because it's the whole point of this video. It says, "A writer is a lover and a student of language."
Being a writer means writing for a reader as much as for yourself. That's a crucial step because it does something for your writing, makes it more alert to the craft of language, and means there's something at stake. So, write for a reader. Your job is to arouse their imagination. That leads me to my next point. The imagination loves particulars, avoids summary and generalization. Imaginative writing depends on evocative detail. A writer is a lover and a student of language. That's your medium, so get to know it intimately. Words are precious. They provide a way into reality, so don't waste or be careless with words in your writing. Discipline and control is vital, but so is play. Treat your writing as an act of discovery. Find ways of sneaking past your inner censor. Surprise yourself and follow where your imagination leads. Read, read, read. Immerse yourself in the world of books. As a writer, you belong to something far bigger than yourself.
So these things kind of come hand in hand. Maybe you don't actively practice writing, but it's naturally inside you. So I'm going to give you the option with these turn-in talks. Is this not the perfect little image? Because you have the option to either turn and talk to someone or to reflect in your notebook if you prefer to write. What are your personal writing challenges? Do you enjoy writing? If not, why not? Take a minute, turn and talk, or reflect in your journal. Let me poll you with a show of hands. Raise your hand if you enjoy writing. You consider yourself a lover of writing. Okay, so we're about split. Well, those of you who did not raise your hand, I challenge you. I'm going to give you some things to love about writing today. So I added some things to these slides about what creative writing does. What does creative writing do? So for our students, the first and foremost, I believe, about what creative writing does is that it gives students opportunities for self-expression. Many times students, especially at a university or beyond level, don't have opportunity to express themselves. So creative writing gives students an outlet for expressing themselves, and similarly gives students catharsis. Catharsis being a place to release maybe some stuff that they're holding on to. Catharsis is that feeling when you just let something out finally. You've been carrying it, it's stressing you out. So creative writing provides a means for students to express themselves and to release some stress. Creative writing also allows students to record their emotions in words, which is really important for students of all ages to be able to connect with their emotions and then express them, whether it be orally or in writing. Another benefit of what creative writing does is it allows students to explore human interactions. When you write creatively and you're writing for that purpose to entertain and to connect with another human, you naturally have this great exploration of human interactions. Either you as a writer comparing or contributing to another human's experience or receiving it. Creative writing also forces students to use their imagination, which we often think, I think as teachers, that little kids use their imagination. But the reality is we all can, no matter how little or big you are or old. And creative writing forces that imagination to be grown. It also increases student empathy as they consider different perspectives. One of the beauties of creative writing is that you can remove yourself from your perspective, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and write from a different perspective, which increases your empathy. It gives you an idea of how that person might feel. And then naturally, creative writing improves general writing ability and grammar understanding. We know the more our students write, the better they get at writing. Whether they're writing formally, or they're writing a poem, or they're writing a note to their friend, or they're writing a text message. No matter what they're doing, as they're writing, they're improving their ability. So creative writing naturally contributes to that. Writing and reading go hand in hand. Good writers are readers, period. Our students have to read in order to write, and vice versa. This quote is kind of hard to see, but it says, if you want to be a good writer, you've got to read like a wolf eats. Gary Paulson says that. You have to read like a wolf eats. So if you consider how a wolf eats, right? That's how we should encourage our students to read if they want to be good writers, or if we want our students to be good writers, with this veracity, right? Good writers read, of course, but good writers don't necessarily have to read to accomplish anything. Good writers can just read. Maybe you're reading a magazine, maybe you're reading a street sign, maybe you're reading a news article, maybe you're reading some gossip on Facebook, maybe you're reading God knows what. Whatever you're reading, it's serving the purpose to contribute to your writing ability, even if it's not accomplishing something. Many of us, as adults, we start to read a book, and we get to page 30, and then it stays on page 30 on your bedside table for 8 months, maybe? Then you might read page 31 as you're falling asleep. And we feel like we never accomplish anything because we only get a little bit into a pleasure reading book. But the reality is, even if we're reading that one page every 6 months, we're not accomplishing the entirety of that book, but we're contributing to our ability to be good writers. Instead, we can be studiers of language. We as English teachers naturally study language all the time. Every mistake our students make require us to think for a second about how language functions, and all of those steps contribute to our ability to be a good writer. So this Stephen King quote says, "Books are a uniquely portable magic," which I think is a romantic quote. The idea that a book is portable and it's magic. It's unique, right? So today in this workshop, I designed this workshop to be focused on activities. There are lots of activities that are creative writing based. Here's just a quick list of the ones we're going to go over today, like journals, short stories, poems, plays or scripts, letters, speeches, sentence frames, lists, rap songs, comic books, and there's more. There's so many. These are the ones that I'm going to explicitly talk to you about today, and we will practice. So don't worry about writing them all down. I just want to show you that there are lots of different creative writing activities we can use in order to teach different concepts in our classes. Now, in addition to activities, there are creative writing techniques. Techniques I'm not necessarily going to focus on in this workshop because they're more focused on the art of creative writing and less on using creative writing as an activity in our class. But perhaps you could use these in your class, like teaching about character, plot, setting, teaching about themes. Figurative language is a huge one with creative writing. The idea of emotional appeal and heavy description is often used in creative writing as we write to appeal to somebody's emotions. We describe things really wordy. So the difference between techniques and activities, the way I see it is essentially, we can use activities as a medium to deliver content. A creative writing activity can be used to deliver a content that is not necessarily a creative writing content. Could be something grammatical, it could be something conversational, but we're using the activity as a means to deliver the content. Whereas a technique would be a filter for a product. So like I showed you with these techniques, heavy description, emotional appeal, figurative language, maybe I would use those in my class to filter what my students are doing. I want them to produce something with figurative language, but it's not an activity within which I could deliver content. Does this make sense? Yes? Kinda? No? I got one thumb. Yes, you're with me. Okay, kind of. The idea being, no matter what we are teaching, if we're trying to find an activity to use to teach that content, creative writing activities are some of those activities. We might use oral activities, we might use worksheets, we might use other stuff, but these activities can deliver different kinds of content. I'll help describe that in a second. So before we get into activities, I did want to take a second to point out figurative language as a technique, because it is kind of the biggest creative writing technique that people use. The reality of figurative language is you have to teach this to your students, and if it's not important for you to teach it to your students, don't do it. That's fine. But I wanted to point these out to you as individuals to see if you have experienced these types of figurative language, and if not, maybe take some time on your own to teach yourself about it. But I figured I'd make a list and just give some examples so that as I talk about them later, you know what I'm talking about. So the first one being alliteration. The idea of alliteration is using the same sound or multiple We're up wide-eyed and wondering while we wait for others to waken. So you can hear the alliteration when I speak that sentence. Hyperbole is the next type of figurative language. Hyperbole is basically describing something really extremely, right? So you snore louder than a freight train, God forbid. An idiom, most of us know because you learn when you learn English pretty frequently. Idioms, like it's raining cats and dogs, just phrases we use in English. Irony is a unique type of figurative language, which in the US usually lends itself to sarcasm. In this case, it's ironic that a man who is a traffic cop gets his license suspended for unpaid parking tickets because he's a cop, but he's not paying his parking tickets. Silly. Metaphor, of course, is a comparison. Like this example, time is money. Time is not actually money, we're just comparing time to money. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is my favorite figurative language technique because it's assigning a sound to a word, like pow or boom. In this case, the burning wood hissed and crackled. The sound of hissed sounds like a fire, right? And crackle sounds like a fire. Crackle, crackle. That's why I like that one. Oxymoron is another form of figurative language. An oxymoron is when you have two conflicting concepts in a similar phrase. For example, the classic, parting is such sweet sorrow. Sweet sorrow is an oxymoron. How can something be sweet and sorrowful at the same time, right? But we use oxymoron to give that sort of conflict in a sentence. A paradox is similar to an oxymoron, and then it gives contrasting ideas. We need to go backwards in order to go forwards. What? It's a paradox, right? It makes sense, but it doesn't. That's also a paradox. Personification, we know, is giving human-like traits to not human things. My example being, the sun greeted me this morning. The sun cannot greet you, but we personify it that way. A pun is basically a play on words, or like a joke with words. Like, she had a photographic memory, but she never developed it. Think about that one for a second. Puns are really hard for second language learners, I think. She had a photographic memory, but she never developed it. Because what do you do with photographs? You develop them, but she didn't develop her memory. And then the last one, the one we use most often, I think, is a simile, where we compare something but using the phrase like, or the word like, or as, like busy as a bee, right? So I gave you this really quick overview of figurative language, just so that you can do a self-evaluation. What do you know? Are some of these new to you? And in fact, why don't you respond to that in your notebook really quickly? Which of these figurative language techniques do you know? Which ones are you comfortable teaching? And which ones are new to you? I included the exact same list I just gave examples for right here. Make a little reflection in your notebook. Which ones do you know already? Which can you teach and which are new? The writing activities. Before we get into the writing activities, I'm going to give you just a short video to recap what I just told you about creative writing, and then we'll get into some activities.
You might have heard it called different things. Traditionally referred to as literature, creative writing is an art of sorts, the art of making things up. It's writing done in a way that is not academic or technical, but still attracts an audience. Though the definition is rather loose, creative writing can, for the most part, be considered any writing that is original and self-expressive. A news article, for example, cannot be considered creative writing because its main goal is to present facts and not to express the feelings of the writer. While a news article can be entertaining, its main purpose is to present the facts. The purpose of creative writing is to both entertain and share human experience, like love or loss. Writers attempt to get at the truth about humanity through poetics and storytelling. If you'd like to try your hand at creative writing, just keep in mind that whether you are trying to express a feeling or a thought, the first step is to use your imagination. Types of creative writing include poetry, plays, movie and television scripts, fiction, novels, novellas, and short stories, songs, speeches, memoirs, and personal essays. As you can see, some non-fiction types of writing can also be considered creative writing. Memoirs and personal essays, for example, can be written creatively to inform your readers about your life in an expressive way. Because these types are written in first person, it's easier for them to be creative. Techniques used in creative writing include character development, plot development, vivid setting, underlying theme, point of view, dialogue, anecdotes, metaphors and similes, figures of speech, imaginative language, emotional appeal, and heavy description.
Okay, I'm going to pause that video there because that's basically what I got to, was towards the techniques. So as you can see, we have lots of options as teachers when it comes to creative writing. Lots of different activities, lots of different techniques, lots of purpose behind it, many emotions to conjure. So today, as we get into working towards activities, consider all of these techniques contributing. Before we start though, I want to make a quick note about modifying. As teachers, we know we have to modify. With these workshops, I don't expect you to agree or to trust everything that I say. You, as a functioning adult, have to take what I say, filter it, think, can I use this or how should I change it, and then deliver it in your classroom. So take what I'm saying, these activities that I present you, and modify them for your students. You can modify them based on your students' language level. Maybe you're working with beginning students, maybe you're working with more advanced students. You can modify them for your students' ability, what they're capable of doing, if they have disabilities. You can modify creative writing activities for your task objective. What do you want your students to do? What do you want them to learn by the end of that task? And then you can also modify them based on your student interest. Maybe you have students that are more interested in one activity than another. So consider this as you're going through these activities. Maybe the examples I provide you will not fit in your class. Sorry, I can't read your mind. But I want you to take what I give you as an idea and modify it for your students. So quickly turn and talk to someone next to you or reflect in your notebook. What kinds of writers do you teach? So think about your students. What do you believe your students are capable of doing, of writing in English? Do you believe your students are capable of writing? Talk to someone next to you. Thank you. Go ahead and give me your attention back up here. I'm going to answer that question with these two quotes. The quote on the left says, "Go and make interesting mistakes. Make amazing mistakes. Make glorious and fantastic mistakes. Break rules. Leave the world more interesting for you being here. Make good art." The idea being that whether our students feel like they are capable or not, whether they have been writing in English for 5 years or they just started yesterday, they're going to make mistakes, and that's a beautiful part of writing. Make beautiful, fantastic, glorious mistakes that contribute. And then I also put this other quote to the right that says, "To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong." To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. So consider that for yourself as a working human, but also for your students. If we're encouraging them to have creative expression in our classroom, We have to contribute to them losing that fear of being wrong, which goes back to your classroom culture. Your classroom culture is a place where your students are free to make mistakes. That's a good place to teach them creative writing. So let's get into some creative writing activities. Just a reminder of our code of conduct. If you don't think, you shouldn't talk. That's what my dad says. If you don't think, don't talk. So as we get into these activities, I'm also going to try and remember to ask for your questions or ideas. We're going to practice some things together, so consider if you have questions or ideas for these activities as well. But we'll start with the very first one, journals. I start with journals because journals are the easiest way to use creative writing in your classroom. You can use a journal off the top of your head. You can use a journal with a piece of paper. You can do a journal on the back of a bar napkin. The purpose of a journal is to be able to write freely about anything. The idea of a journal is that you're using that space to write freely about a variety of topics. That's what makes it so easy to use journaling in your class. No matter what your topic is, no matter what you're teaching, you can have your students journal about it. There are some great benefits to journaling for students also, including that it builds their confidence. Journaling builds your students' confidence. It gives you insight as the teacher about your students, if you're reading what they're journaling about. It serves as a safe haven for beginners. What that means is that people who don't write or that are just beginning to write, or students who are newly beginning to write in English, can journal freely and safely without the fear of it being critiqued like a formal piece of writing. It's a safe haven. Another benefit is that it helps to contribute to growth in grammar and mechanics. Like I told you before, the more students write, the more they're practicing grammar and mechanics. And it also helps some of your students deal with some issues. We have students that come to our classroom with some serious baggage, some serious stress, some trauma in their life, and sometimes journaling will just help to release that. So I'm going to show you a quick video about journaling.
Hey, and welcome back to the Undepression Project. Today we're going to talk about journaling and how you can use it to overcome depression. In its most basic form, journaling is putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard to record the events that happen in your life day to day. It can be a brain dump or a step-by-step account of your day. You can use prompts, you can write letters, or you can start with the classic, Dear Diary. But why would you want to journal? Isn't journaling something teenage girls do when they have a crush? Well, yes, it is. And I have a stack of glittery gel pen covered notebooks to prove it. But besides that, journaling is a powerful tool for sorting and assessing your thoughts and feelings. And for those who struggle with depression, it's great for tracking, managing, and dealing with whatever comes up during a depressive episode. Studies have shown that journaling positively affects mental health and can actually improve the effects of psychotherapy. Taking time out to reflect on your day can provide you with some pretty powerful information on yourself and how you see the world. By regularly writing down your thoughts, you get a record of your current perspective on life and can use this to find patterns. Journaling can also be used to rewrite that ongoing narrative in your head. When you've got depression, you tend to see the world in a much more negative light. When you write down what happens during the day, you get a chance to reflect on this in a less emotionally charged way and get a more objective perspective. You can reflect on whether that interaction was truly as negative as it seemed in the moment and examine your role in the interaction. By writing things down, you can learn valuable lessons on how your thoughts and behaviors shape your experience. And with this information, you can make better informed decisions for how you choose to behave in the future. Writing down what you learn is a great way to process and remember information. I journal pretty regularly, and I enjoy it. Plus, who doesn't need another excuse to buy cheap stationery? And it's not always my deepest feelings either. Sometimes it's goals, or weird dreams, or funny jokes, or just a mess of thoughts and feelings I've had throughout the day. I like to use journaling as a way to collect my thoughts when I have a tough decision to make. Pro con list, anybody? I also like to use journaling as a way to keep track of my goals, to see what I've been doing well, and to look at what needs improvement. The nice thing about journaling is that it's pretty easy to do. All you need is a pen and paper, or you could go digital and use your computer or your phone. You can even dictate your journal as a voice memo if that's easier, although you do do get better results when you physically write it down. Once you pick your journal of choice, use it to record your moods, recurring thoughts, your goals, and your progress as you work towards your goals. If you're working with a therapist or a coach, use your journal as a space to write down what you've learned and how you plan to apply it. Daily journaling is ideal. Even just 10 minutes will do the trick. But if daily journaling seems like a bit much to start, go with a weekly summary. Build regular journaling into your schedule so you don't forget. The more consistent you are with journaling, the better your results are going to be.
In my class, my students, I told you guys a little bit about when I was teaching my high schoolers in Baltimore. I bought notebooks for my students day one of class, and every day when they came in, they had a journal question on the board. And I used it just like I did for this workshop. In the beginning of class, sometimes I'm dealing with stuff, I'm taking attendance, my students are coming late, but the students knew every day they'd come in, open their notebook, and start writing about whatever question I had posted, and I'd give them about 8-10 minutes to work on journal questions. So some journal examples. Some people use journals to reflect on learning. So maybe you use a journal at the end of your class as an exit ticket, like reflect on your learning today, or what do you need more help with, and have students consider what they worked on in your class and what they might need for the next time. You could also, depending on what you're teaching, use a journal to conjure a student's understanding or their empathy. So maybe a question could be, how would you feel if you were in this situation? What would you do differently? Maybe if you're reading something in your class, you can have students reflect on what they're reading with journal questions like this. So let's try it. On the back of your agenda, there's a list that at the top says April. There's this great document I'll email to you later that divides each month. For every day of each month, there's a different journal writing prompt. So I included April in case you want to start journaling in April. But for today, choose any one of these prompts and just write about it in your notebook. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, but please be quiet during this activity just to allow everyone their own space to write. I've just passed you a half sheet. Don't worry about it right now and don't read it. I just passed it to you so it would be less distracting. We're going to use it in a minute. But as we wrap up that idea of a journal activity, I'm going to give you some modifications for your higher or low-level students, depending on who you're working with. These are just some ideas to consider if you're using journaling in your class. Maybe if you have low-level students, you would give them minimal choices. Sometimes teachers use choices as a way to provide access to all different students in your class. But if your students are low-level, they might need more scaffolding. You could also give response options to your students or have them illustrate their choice. Maybe instead of writing for 10 minutes, they write one sentence and then draw. You could also use sentence frames or visuals for low-level students. We should be using sentence frames and visuals for low-level students anyway. And then if you have higher-level students who are more fluent in writing, you could ask your students to create the journal questions, perhaps. You could also use technology, maybe, if you have access to that, like having your students write blog posts or I don't know if you guys use Blackboard here. Just a way to blog, essentially, online conversations. You can also add time or length requirements. In my class, when I gave students journaling, usually they were pretty respectful and would write for the amount of time I gave them. But if they got off task, I started giving them a length requirement. You need to write 20 sentences. So if it takes you 40 minutes to write 20 sentences, you better figure yourself out, right? Speed it up. So maybe with your higher level students, they need those sorts of requirements. Does anyone have questions or ideas about journaling? Do you think you could use this in your class? Yes? Maybe? No? Cool. Okay. Well, I'll give you another activity then. Short stories are a really fun activity to have in English language classes. Short stories give you the freedom to teach about a lot of different things. In order to use a short story, you don't need to teach your students all of these different components, but you could teach them perhaps one and focus on that to write the story in your class. For example, characters. Point of view is a really easy one to use in English language classes because we talk about pronouns and all those sorts of things, considering points of view. Setting, context, and plot. What happens in the story, where it happens, what's happening around. The idea of conflict and tension. We can teach our students in order to write a short story. Or the crisis or the climax, which is an integral part of a story we could use. The idea of resolution is the end of the story, essentially, what happens in the end. And then many stories include dialogue, which is really relevant to us as we're teaching our students how to converse. With short stories, we can also use graphic organizers, which if you attended the very first workshop, you know that graphic organizers are a really great way to get our students engaged in writing. We can also use illustrations to describe what's going on in a short story. That's especially applicable if we're writing children's stories that always have pictures and words together. And of course, like we talked about earlier, writing and reading go hand in hand. So oftentimes if you're reading a story with your students, it's super easy to just, whoop, now write one, right? If you've seen this before, there's a million graphic organizers on using story maps. What happens in the beginning, who are the characters, what's the climax, what's the resolution. And this is a really good way to get students writing about something. You can map a story that you read in your class, perhaps. So some short story examples. Maybe in your class you're working on past tense verbs. So you can have students write a short story using verbs in the past, like run, jump, chase, escape, hide. You're going to get a bunch of different short stories, but they will all have the theme of something related to running, jumping, hiding, right? Which is really exciting to see what your students come up with. Then if you give them the structure of using these verbs in the past tense, that's what you will grade them on. Not on the quality of their story, but on if they use these verbs in the past tense, right? That's your stipulation. Maybe you're working with adjectives or describing, and you could have your students write a short story that takes place anywhere. I use the example of Africa. Use adjectives to describe the scenery and the climate, such as arid, dry, monotonous, broad, barren. Now you're grading your students on if they're using adjectives to describe the setting of this place, right? These short stories can be whatever you want as the teacher, however long you want. You can give them as much structure as you want. These are just some ideas. And you can modify them based on the level of your students. So low-level students might need to mimic a story, which is reading a story and then copying it, not copying it exactly, but mimicking it with new words or new themes or new character names. Your low-level students, you might allow them to use phrases in lieu of complete sentences. If you haven't taught them how to write a complete sentence yet, you might expect them to use phrases instead. You might expect low-level students to utilize a storyboard or a map. And maybe they will create repetitive structures, like those more basic stories that have similar subject and predicate structures. For high-level students, you could teach them explicitly about story elements, like plot and character. You could write stories about other class content, whatever you're working on in class. Maybe you're talking about, I don't know, theorists, and you could write a story about them. You could also require your students to write from different points of view or in different tenses. So if you're teaching your students about the past tense, require them to write in the past tense. Or if you're teaching them about the present, require them to write that way. Or maybe if you're teaching them about he, she, it, and the difference between that and they, plural and singular, require them to write from the point of view of a she or whatever. Anybody have questions or ideas about short stories? Do you think you could use this in your class? Yes, maybe? No? Cool. Ah, thanks. Okay, my baby. The joy of poetry. Poetry in a class, in an English language class, has lots of benefits. I listed them for you, including that poetry builds classroom community and culture. Writing poems for many students is really vulnerable. So by contributing poems to your class, you're adding to the culture and the community of your class. Poetry opens venues for speaking and listening. Many times poets read their work out loud. You could require that of your students. Maybe they're writing a poem to be performed, which opens the venue for their classmates to listen. Poetry builds resilience. And what I mean by that is that if you give students a structure within which to write their poem, you require a certain number of lines or rhymes or syllables, it can get frustrating for students to write with that structure. So it builds their resilience. They have to persevere. They have to push through that kind of stuff. It also broadens their reading choices and your reading choices as a teacher for what you're giving your students. Many of us, when we're preparing classes, we provide our students with nonfiction texts. Only nonfiction text. Only. Never any poetry in the class. Maybe your textbook doesn't include any poetry. You should supplement what you're teaching your students with other reading choices like poems or short stories. Poetry also transcends content. So it doesn't just apply to language arts. Poetry can apply to science. We can write about different content using poems. We can read poems about different content. So I included this little quote that says, "Poetry is language at its most distilled and most powerful." The idea being that when we have students writing poetry in our class, they have to choose words really specifically. They have to be deliberate with their words when they write poems. And that's a nice way to get English language learners engaging with writing. So there are lots of different types of poems, and because poetry is my baby, I wish I could give a whole workshop just about poems. But I won't. I'll just give you some options. These are some different kinds of poems you can include in your class, like sonnets that require rhythm and rhyme, a haiku, which is those short little poems. A limerick is really catchy and fun. Free verse poems can often transcend journaling. They go kind of together. So here's an example. Maybe you're teaching your students about nouns, and you require them to write a poem about nouns. Here's my poem about nouns. It's a haiku. If you've never written a haiku before, the restriction on a haiku is just that a haiku is 3 lines. The first line, ooh, I touched it. The first line has 5 syllables, the second has 7, and the last has 5. So, a haiku about nouns, people, places, things, nouns, touchable, tangible ideas, parts of speech. Thank you. No, but this is just an example. You could have your students write a haiku about anything. I just wrote this silly haiku about nouns. Here's another poem example. You could have your students write an ode. I know Gerardo is teaching his students right now about theorists, so I wrote this for you. If you don't know B.F. Skinner, he's a theorist, a language acquisition theorist, and many of us teach theory to our students. So I wrote an ode to B.F. Skinner. It goes, "Oh, Skinner, your language acquisition theory shapes my life. My behaviors are determined by their consequences because you exist. Positive and negative reinforcement is your tune. I love to see operant conditioning function in rats and other creatures. You are the theorist of the 20th century. Who needs free will when they have you?" This was way too funny for me. So this is just an idea. Maybe you're teaching your students about language acquisition theory. Why not have them write an ode? As you can see, I've summarized the ideas of Skinner in this ode. Instead of having my students write something formal, I can have them do it this way. They're going to be more engaged, for one. They're going to be able to be creative. You're going to see a little bit of their personality, which is always good. So this is just another example, a way that you could use this in your class. I'm going to give you a video about blackout poetry. Now the last example on my list was found poetry, which I said was when you don't use your own words, you use words of other people, contributed from different sources perhaps, arrange them into a poem. This video about blackout poetry is going to describe our next activity.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to be exposing you to the wonderful world of blackout poetry. This is a recent art form that I found, and I've really been enjoying it. I thought I would make a little how-to video to inspire you guys to go out and try and make some blackout poetry. It's really easy to do, but it's so much fun, and you can feel like a real poet at the end of it if it goes well. So yeah, let's start with, what is blackout poetry? Blackout poetry is a form of appropriation art. Appropriation art is an art form that takes something that already exists and either puts it in a different context or manipulates and changes it in some way that makes the viewer think of it all from a new light. In blackout poetry, you're taking writing that you probably didn't write yourself, although you could make blackout poetry from your own writing. But you're changing it, you're manipulating it to make something brand new. Most blackout poetry looks like this. It's where you take a page out of a book that you like and you black out most of the words, only leaving a few that form a poem. So let's get started. Number one, what will you need? Wonderfully, you really only need two things. One is you're going to need some writing stuff. So what I always do is go to a used bookstore so that I don't feel guilty about ripping a gorgeous new book. Or there's also newspaper poetry. So I've got both. You just need some writing that you can draw on. And the second thing you're going to need is some stuff to black it out with. So traditionally, it's the black permanent marker, but you can also use paint. Those are the only things you need. So let's get started. So you're going to want to flip to a page. It can literally be any page, or you can flip through and find a scene that you really enjoyed in the book, some dialogue that you think is really interesting, because whatever the kind of mood of the pages can pretty reliably kind of form the mood of the words that are going to stick out to you, and therefore the mood of your overall ending poem. So the next step is controversial. It's not at all controversial. It's just up to what you want to do. Either you can go straight into the book and start marking down words that you like, or you can grab a piece of paper and do some planning. I personally like doing some planning. It has happened to me before where I'll start blacking things out and then I will accidentally black out a word that I really wanted for my poem to make any sense, and then I realize it's too late, I already blacked it out. Because once you permanently mark something, you're done. So what I like to do is stick a piece of paper in it and then start to, it would be like, okay, yeah, what do I really like that word, and I'll write it down beside. And then we go, oh, that's a great word, I'll write it down beside. And the next thing I know, I've got a list of words that I find really useful, really interesting, and I can make a poem out of them. Like,
It's Mary Shelley. It's from Frankenstein. Yeah. So you can actually choose text. You could use an article. You could use a magazine. You could use a newspaper. Whatever. Do you think this is an activity you could do in your class? Yes. Maybe. No. Right. Okay. I've got one more for you, and then we'll take a break. Oh, I lied. Here's some modifications for poems. If you have low-level students and you're writing poems in your class, you can cut up parts of a poem and have students arrange the parts. You could provide words, like a word bank for your students to write a poem. You could provide structure. You can also, for low-level students, you can grade them on usage, not on grammar. So how are they using the words, not necessarily their grammar's correct. But with low-level students, you want to make sure that you're clear about your content. What are you expecting from your students with this activity? For high-level students, you can teach them form, like a poem, like a haiku. Teach them about syllables and that a haiku has 5, then 7, then 5. Expect them to use structure, perhaps. Challenge your students with tone. Maybe have them write a poem that's dark, and then have them write a contrasting poem with a different tone. You can also teach and require the use of figurative language. Have your students write a poem that's a metaphor. That's a high-level task for students to do. So consider those modifications. Does anyone have questions or ideas? So this last activity before we take a break, the idea of plays and scripts. Many of us use plays and scripts already because we are constantly talking and listening and creating conversations. But essentially, a script is a piece of writing in the form of a drama. Drama, of course, is intended to be performed. Performance in our language classes can be a really useful activity or tool. But the idea being that it has to sound effective when it's read out loud. If you write a script that when it's read out loud doesn't make sense, it's not a script. It has to have some cadence with different people reading different parts, that when they perform it out loud, it creates a drama. A script consists of two things, dialogue and stage directions. So if you've written a script before, you might have started with the man walks across the stage, or whatever, the stage direction, and then the dialogue of what the people or the characters actually say. So maybe in your class you're teaching vocabulary about how to talk to a doctor, which is in every beginning English class, right? We always talk about doctor vocabulary. So maybe you could do it in the form of a script or a play. Write an interaction in a script form between the doctor. What does the doctor say? What does the patient say? Maybe you're teaching about forming questions, and you can have your students write questions and responses. Maybe your focus is vocabulary, and in this example you could use vocabulary like ache, pain, medicine, remedy, injection, whatever your vocabulary is. As you create this activity for your students, you can determine what your purpose is. This is just an example. So for lower level students, maybe you provide the dialogue and have your students write the stage directions, or vice versa. Provide the stage directions and have the students write the dialogue. But with low level students, you have to provide them ample practice time. Low level students are nervous in general. They're nervous to speak, they're nervous to perform, to participate. So provide them ample time to practice. High-level students maybe could collaborate with each other. They do it in a group, they create something bigger than just a conversation. Or you could modify and have the students write character descriptions in addition to their characters. However many characters they have, they include a character description with their script. Do you think you could use this in your class? Do you already use this in your class? Yeah, good, good.